Are back with another quadratic equation. At least I think it is. Well, look at that. You've got 6x squared. It is, in fact, a quadratic equation. 2 is the highest power. How do I solve these things? Well, first step, of course, set that thing equal to 0, which it's not. So I have a step to do before I start this whole factoring process. Let's get started on that, shall we? So I need to subtract this 44 over. Select a pencil color. This dark blue looks really nice. And then minus 44 equals 0. Okay. And now I know it's quadratic. I know that I need to factor this thing, so I can use the whole zero product property on it. But how do I factor it? Well, I need to examine my A term here, my leading coefficient, and it's a 6. Since it's a 6, that means I'm supposed to do the AC method, right? AC method. That's not how you spell that word. Where I'm supposed to multiply 6 times negative 44 and get a product of, some large number here. Yeah. And so the AC method on this one, even though it will work, is not necessarily the best idea. When your product gets large like this one's about to be, I think it's more efficient to use a method that's called guess and check. Now, guess and check, it's a little tougher, and so it definitely requires a little bit of practice before you can really consider it part of your toolkit of factoring. And it goes like this. It is essentially the whole factoring process backwards. You can actually see it play out. And at no point do you multiply the A times the C. You don't. You go straight to your parentheses. Burp, burp, and burp. If you are weak with your multiplication facts, if you were not one of those that studied with some flashcards or something like that, and back in the 4th and the 5th grade, this guess and check method might be a little bit more challenging for you to do, and you may have to rely upon the AC method. But let's take a look, right? So I open up the parentheses. I'm going to go straight to the answer, and I want to understand this whole FOIL process. When I multiply this first term times this first term, the only thing that I'm going to get is 6x squared. Actually, I need to get rid of it on that one because it's on this next one because I subtracted it. In other words, this term times this term is supposed to multiply up to 6x squared. So what times what is 6x squared? Well, you got a couple of options. Like maybe it's a 6x and a 1x. Maybe that works. Or maybe it is a 3x and a 2x. You don't know which one works, which is why this is called guessing and checking. You guess one and you check to see if this one works. I'm going to go with, for right now, I'm going to go with this 3x and 2x and see if it works. If it doesn't, I need to go back and change something. Okay. Now the next one that I deal with, go away, I'm trying to erase you. I now deal with the last terms. The first ones and the last ones are the easiest ones to deal with. So the last terms, if I multiply this last one by this last one, what number do I get? I get negative 44. And again, you get lots of experience with foiling, and you know that's the only place where that negative 44 is going to come from. It's the multiplication of those two positions, the two last ones. So now I'm thinking of two things that multiply up to negative 44. Well, what comes to mind for me for 44, make a little factor tree here, is like maybe 4 and 11, right? Anytime I see double digits, I always think 11 goes into it. So I want to place those two factors in these two spots. And it definitely matters where they are. So let's say, for example, I decided to put the 4 here and the 11 here. I would know, or I should know from experience, that that's not going to work. No matter what. I don't really even have to check anything. I know that that's not going to work, and here's the reason. If I look in this set of parentheses, I have a 2 and I've got a 4, which means that this whole entire factor has a common factor of 2. 2 goes into both of them. In other words, what we could do is divide both of those by 2. I could factor out a 2 out of the whole thing, and then this thing would become x, and this one would be a 2. And if you could factor it out of this one, that means you could have factored it out of that one. Can I? Well, the 6 is good and the 44 is good, but the 25 sure is not. It's odd number. 2 is not going to go into it. So in general, if two numbers have the same, have a common factor, you don't put them in the same set of parentheses. Okay? So instead, if these numbers are going to work, this 4 is going to go over here on this outside one, and then I'll put the 11 over here. How do I check it? I check it with the ones I haven't even looked at yet. No matter what, first and last are good to go. Those numbers are going to work to give me the 6x squared and the 44. And notice at no point have I even looked at signs yet. I don't ever do that. Guess and check, I never look at that until the very, very end. Okay, so to check this, I'm going to look at the sum of the outside terms and the inside terms. And it kind of looks like maybe like a little rainbow thing here. Let me even scoot this down so the rainbow is in the right position. Right. So the outside terms would go like this. If I multiply those two together, 3x and the 11x gives me a 33x. And then the inside, it's the 4 and the 2. Multiply those two, that's the rainbow that I was talking about. That would give me an 8x. All right, so is there anything that I can do, either adding or subtracting? Can I add those two terms up to get 25? Could I subtract them to get 25? Oh, I think so. And notice it's got to be positive, so I think that this has got to be a positive 33x, and this has to be a negative 8. If I take 33 minus 8, I get positive 25. And so now that shows me my factors work, and now I just need to put the signs in the right place. So let's work on this 8. This negative 8x has to come from 4 and 2, and so I have the ability to put the negative sign in front of the 4, so it's a negative 4 times the 2x. The 33x has to be a positive times a positive, so this one is a positive 11. Okay, and so again, if you were to FOIL this out, you would see these two numbers pop out for your outside and your inside terms. And then, of course, for your first term, you'd have your 6x squared. That's the 3x times the 2x. And your negative 44 would come from your negative 4 and your 11, and it would all work out just fine. Okay? And so now you can apply your zero product property. And since this one is all about shortcuts, I'm taking shortcuts too. I know that this would be equal to 0. I would have to add over the 4, and I would divide by 3. It's 4/3. Right? Just go straight to that answer. On this one, it's going to be negative because I'd have to subtract over the 11 and divide by 2. X is equal to negative 11 halves. So there you go. Those are some advanced techniques using this thing that we call the guess and check method in order to solve a quadratic.